Shalom and welcome to everyone. My name is Yehuda Michael. I'm a program director at MCTC. Thank you for joining us from all over the world as we celebrate Women's History Month and International Women's Day. MCTC and MISHAV, Israel Agency for International Development Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, welcomes you to the Spotlight on Women Leaders of the World series. On the series, we invite women leaders from all over the world to share with us their experience. If you have any question to our guest for today, please feel free to write down into the chat section, and at the end of the interview, we will ask your question on your behalf. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, both in Facebook Live as well as in Zoom. For those of you in Zoom, please mute yourself. We are honored today to host Rita Thapa, a founder of Tewa Nagarik Aawaz in Nepal. Rita Thapa is widely recognized for her groundbreaking work in founding Tewa. She has over 35 years experience as a feminist educator, community activist, initiating and supporting institutions for women empowerment and for peace. Rita also founded and led from 2001 to 2009 Nagarik Aawaz, an initiative for conflict transforming and peace building in Nepal. In recognition of this exceptional innovation contributing to public good, Rita received the rare honor of being named an Ashoka Fellow. She served as a past board member and chair of the Global Fund for Women in the Urgent Action Fund. In 2005, she was included in the 1,000 Women for Peace nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. She also served on the board of the Global Fund for Community Foundation and the South Asia Women Fund. Let's watch a short video about her organization before I start asking her the question. We will have the video now. Here we go.
मैले टेवा सुरु गर्दा जुन चाहिँ हाम्रो विकास चाहिने दात्री संस्थाहरूमा निर्भित र महिलाहरूलाई स्रोतको पहुँच एकदम कम मेरो आफ्नै व्यक्तिगत महिलावादी राजनीतिले गर्दा सुरु गरे।
टेवा नेपालको महिलाको विकासको एउटा अभियानमा लागिरहेछौँ र हामीभित्र विविधता भएका महिलाहरू समेटिएको छ। हामीले एलजिबिटिआईक्यू कम्युनिटीमा काम गर्ने होस्, सिङ्गल वुमेन, दलित, जनजाति, सेक्स वर्कर, सीमान्तकृत महिलाहरू र दूरदराजमा बसेको गाउँको दिदीबहिनीहरूको संस्थालाई समेट्ने प्रयास गरेको छौँ र यो हामी निरन्तर जारी राख्छौँ। बेसिकली 1995 मा हामीले सुरु गऱ्यौँ। संस्थापिका रिता दिदीको सोचबाट सुरु भएको उहाँले बियन बेजिङ कन्फरेन्सबाट फर्किसक्नु भएपछि नेपालमा पनि एउटा यस्तो संस्था सुरु गरौँ जहाँ चाहिँ नेपालीहरूबाटै अर्थ सङ्कलन र नेपालको महिला संस्थाहरू जो केही काम गर्न जुरुमुराइरहनु भएको छ उहाँलाई फन्डिङ सपोर्ट सुरु गर्नु भनेर सुरु गर्नुभएको र अहिलेसम्म हामीले नेपाली भित्रबाट अर्थ सङ्कलन पनि निरन्तर गरिरहेछौँ र उठेको पैसाबाट चाहिँ आज अनुदान सपोर्ट चाहिँ नेपालको महिला संस्थाहरूले दिइरहेछौँ।
यहाँसम्म हाम्रो संस्थालाई ल्याइ पुगाउने देन नै टेवाको। मुगु जिल्लामा थुप्रै संस्थाहरू छन् तर हाम्रो संस्था 5 वर्ष भयो अहिले। टेवाले हामीलाई अगाडि बढायो हैन। थुप्रै क्षेत्रमा हामीले अहिले जुम्लामा अनुमति लग्यौं, नेपालगञ्जमा पनि लग्यौं, 5 नम्बर प्रदेशको कालीकोटमा लग्यौं, हुम्लामा लग्यौं, डोल्पामा पनि लग्दैछौँ। त्यहाँसम्म पुगाउने देन त टेवाको हो नि त हामी। न त टेवा हुन्थेन भने हामी संस्थाको नाममा संस्था मात्रै हुन्थ्यौं कि अगाडि बढ्न सक्थेनौं, सपोर्ट पाउँथेनौं होला सायद।
हामीलाई चाहिँ नि दुईटा जिल्लामा नेतृत्व विकास तालिम दिनको लागि पैसा टेवाबाट पाएको थियौं र हामी ती दिदीबहिनीहरूलाई तालिम दिएको थियौं र सानो पैसाले टेवाले धेरै ठुलो काम गरेको छ। त्यो एकदमै इफेक्टिभ भएको छ र अहिले रिसेन्टली भर्खर हामीले चाहिँ अस्ति 2,90,000 उहाँहरूले फन्ड दिनुभयो र भक्तपुरमा त्यहाँ गयौँ। इट वाज वन्डरफुल। आई रियली वान्टेड टु थ्याङ्क टेवा।
Thank you for the short video. I want to welcome Rita Thapa. It's a pleasure to have you in our program today, and thank you for joining us from Kathmandu, Nepal this morning. Rita.
Thank you very much, and namaste, everyone.
happy Women's Day too.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste as well. My first question for you will be more personal. Tell us about yourself a little bit, your background and your current role, who you are.
Thank you, Yehuda. I have always lived in Kathmandu, that's the capital city. So I was born here and educated here. I didn't get to finish my studies properly, like college. I was married very early. And then I had two girls very quickly and finished my graduation privately. And but I also got widowed very quickly, some 34 years back. And since then, like I raised my three children, and yeah, that's about me. And currently, so the organizations that were mentioned here earlier, I handed those over because I believe in transition of leadership. And now I am coordinating the Peace Building Memorial and Learning Center for Nagarik Aawaz. That's the Peace Building organization, because I finished doing something like that for Tewa. And I'm also coordinating, very interestingly, a women's movement basically called a Intergenerational Feminist Forum. And through that, especially post-COVID, we are trying to build community safety nets.
Thank you for sharing. You're doing really a lot of work. I actually want to have a follow-up question to what you mentioned. You founded Tewa many years ago, and I want to ask you, what was the mission of the organization, and what actually motivates you to do this, or to establish this organization?
Yes, Yehuda. I mean, it's again a very personal response, because one, being widowed and all the traditional death rituals, I chose not to do that after the first year of mourning, which was very intense. And I was wondering, where am I giving back to the community? So I could see widely that the erosion of traditional philanthropy ingrained within cultural and religious giving, that was dwindling. And the other one was, we are so dependent on foreign donors. And I felt that somehow it comes with a lot of baggage. And so we wanted, what Tewa does basically is to raise money locally from many, many, many individual donors. I think they now have over like 7,000. Not all of them are retained. And they give sometimes very small amounts of money in terms of the equation of a dollar, for instance. And so we raise money locally to make grants to women's groups all over Nepal.
Well, it is really interesting organization, and it's always important that part of the community is giving back to the community. So it's a great initiative. The other question I will ask you would be about the second initiative that you did. I'm probably going to do the same and ask what motivates you to establish Nagaraki Aawaz. I probably mispronounced it, but I'm sorry for that.
That will do. It's Nagarik Aawaz, but for a first timer, you're doing very well.
Thank you.
So, Yehuda, it's so difficult to explain because Nepal has been in perpetual transition. And when I just handed over the leadership at Tewa, I thought I deserved a sabbatical. I did everything that I meant to do in a very short time, and I broke new grounds in terms of local philanthropy. So I thought I deserved a rest. But the Maoist insurgency that was almost parallel with Tewa, with the founding of Tewa, the palace massacre happened in Nepal in 2001, June, and violence escalated. I mean, we'd have like 171, I think that was the, no, 145 in one case, and some over 40 in another case. Security people died at one time because, I mean, violence just escalated. So I felt that as somebody who understood development a little bit, I knew the brunt of all this would fall on women largely and children, and so that I ended up founding Nagarik Aawaz.
Now, that's very important. A lot of time when there's a conflict, the women and elderly and children are the one who are impacted. So I think it's a great initiative what you did. Let me ask you a question related with today, the Women's International Day. I want to hear your opinion about what does International Women Day mean to you as a person, and also what does it mean to be a woman in part of the world that and you're living in right now?
For me, it is the biggest festival. For me, this is the only festival I celebrate. From the time my husband died, I haven't attended weddings or any celebration because the connotation for widows were very difficult at that time. Not anymore so much, but you're supposed to not dress in certain colors where, you know, it's just too much trouble. So I count this as my celebration personally. But for all of us, I think it's about, you know, women are denied basic access, decision making, and really are second class citizens in countries like mine. So I think it has a lot of meaning for especially activist leaders who are taking a lot on in order to clear the path. And I think for every woman, I mean, a day of some recognition and awareness. And more than women, I mean, Yehuda, when I look at you, I say, you know, it's really men who are joining in. And I think among the young people, there's a lot of that, a lot of men who are also supporting women's initiatives and are feminists themselves. So that's very encouraging to see.
That's absolutely true. There's a lot of awareness going on around the world these days, especially in the young generation in the era of social media and many things. But there's many works to be done. It's not enough. I want to ask you actually a follow-up question. What message needs to be told in this month? Like, which are the, I think you already covered up a little bit, but I want you to give more depths on that subject. What message needs to be told in this entire month dedicated to Women History Month?
Yes. You know, I learned both during times of active conflict and earlier, even sort of normal times, that it's really the women who hold families and communities together largely, especially where like uh, housework is not shared and roles are very dichotomized in our communities. So it's the women who hold communities, homes together and make the world so much more livable than it would otherwise be. And I think we just have to hold our hands on our hearts and say that, women are equal global citizens and deserve the same opportunities and access to live in dignity. I think that's all that women need. They don't need to be bigger or better or more powerful than men. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is true. It's all about the giving and getting an opportunity, and sympathy, and being there. So I definitely agree with you.
Mm.
Um, I want to ask you a personal question related with the same subject. Um, which women are you inspired by in your local community or globally, and why? Just give us more information about it.
Thank you, Yehuda, again. I mean, locally, I mean, everyone inspires me because I learn so much from everyone. But I think it's the women in the local communities who work tirelessly in the fields and in the homes to hold our communities together that are my role models, because I really admire that. And I don't have the knowledge and the skills they have, because they have many, many, many indigenous knowledge that helps them to grow food, to do so much more than I could ever do. And I think globally, I have been very inspired when I joined the board of the Global Fund for Women in 1991, I think. You know, my feminist donors and women who came together to hold this organization together and to make resources available for women all over the world, especially after the Beijing conference. I really admire that very much. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing. Really, I think everyone's story matters and everyone is inspiring in some level. There's a lot of people who don't think that their story matters that much, especially women. So I think that's a great answer you give us today by saying I'm inspired by everyone. So it's a really great answer. Thank you for that. Um, my question, another one I want to ask you is, which men do you find inspiring that are doing their parts for women equality? And what is your suggestion for a man to get involved in women empowerment in general?
That's a harder question because men in my generation, I don't think, have broken down the veneer or the sort of bark of patriarchy around them, or the chain of patriarchy around them. And therefore, and so I don't think they're doing enough um, uh, what they could do in their positions of power. But there's so much hope among the youth. And I think what they need to do, young men primarily, is they need to speak up within the homes and outside in public spheres, and also share privilege, space, and importantly, care work.
I agree. I agree with you. Question of equality and women empowerment is not something that we leave only for the women. It's an collection act by men and women, and gender equality is basically talking about not only women but having both opportunity for both. So thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
The next question will be, you have over like 35 years of work experience. What has been your biggest challenge and how you overcome them? It could be because you're a woman, it could be for many other reasons.
My personal biggest challenge always has been although Yehuda, I was always financially independent, because when my husband died, my parents had only two girls, and because I was born here, they had property that they could give me. And my husband being a civil engineer, and we were in big transition early on, so we built our own home. So I always had that. But to do something, like to initiate something, I think I personally, as well as everybody, has had challenges. Women, largely women's organizations, has had access to adequate financial resources, and patriarchy just dominates the entire context. So you have to shift shape so much. You have to, when you speak to government officials, and then you speak to men who are powerful, and the context is all, or men in general, and they're the ones who hold all the spaces and all the power, at least official or formal. So that has been really difficult. And I was a single mother since now for 34 years. So, doing all that I've done and making ends meet and also raising children has been also difficult.
I bet it's more difficult and to be in different situations that you always have to fight. But you did a great job by not only doing what you do for yourself, but something that inspires the community. So uh, thank you for your answer. Um, it- Founding two organization and being involving in a lot of boards also and other initiatives, what is the most important decision you made as a leader of your organization or the initiatives you involve in? How do you come into decision making usually?
I think, Yehuda, when you're thrown in a context such as I think unless you turn blind, it's all around you. So I think I've always been guided to do the best I could for the larger good. And in my case, it's largely been women, because I have lived my life as a woman. And then I have been also very lucky to be guided by my intuition. So I listen to my inner voice, and I'm not afraid to do how I'm guided on the inside. So I don't see what's good for me, and whether it's going to be comfortable or not. But if I have a strong voice within me guiding me to do something, then I jump in.
Thank you. That will lead me into my final question before we move to the audience question. That would be, what are the good characteristics of a leader in your experience? What is the tips you can give for you?
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be different for different people. But for me, I believe that we need to lead only by example. We cannot ask somebody to do something that we don't put into practice, and it works for us. Mm, and I think sometimes, like, if we can inspire others to go further than what they are capable of, or what they think they are capable of. I have consistently had that experience, and it's been really, really wonderful. So when you push people, not necessarily push, but you help people see that they are capable of so much more, and they discover themselves. I think that's wonderful. And for me, like, consistency, integrity, and compassion are very, very important values also cutting one's ego, you know. We are all the same, and some of us have the privilege and the vision, so it's for us to put that in work, so nothing big. And sharing power, you know, I think when you work on the ego, then it's easier to share power.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita, for sharing with us a very inspiring stories throughout the interview. We really appreciate it. I think we do have a few questions from the audience that my colleague Nuria Levy has been following. Nuria, please.
Thank you, Yehuda and Rita. It's such a pleasure to have you with us, to listen at your extraordinary life and the path that you've taken, and the way that you speak with such humility is really amazing to hear you speak. And we do have a few questions for you. One of them is I was paying attention to some of the things that you've said about the different challenges, culture challenges, traditions that they're irrigated in your culture and in your way of life and society. And also you mentioned the fact that you yourself had to raise children by yourself. And I was wondering regarding the ladies that they come to the organization, to Tewa, uh, I'm sure they also have families. And that would be the question is how do you help them manage the challenges that they have, as they say, balancing life and trying to get themselves ahead? How does the organization help them?
Yes, so in all the organizations, we actually make sure we have at least 50% women at all levels, but it's often more. In Tewa, there are more women. In Nagarik Aawaz also, there are more women than men working for us. And but by being compassionate, you know, how we do is we don't say, okay, you need a holiday, you take the. We are just when somebody gets a child is sick and a mother needs to be home, then we just let her do that while the other colleagues cover up her work. And however long that takes her, no judgments. And then when she comes back, she'll do more. So it's just a very fluid, very, how shall I say, a comfortable thing. But we also trust then each other to know that nobody is, I mean, you know, nobody is making things up or it's really, yeah. So just by being very caring to each other, by understanding, not having hard rules and where your salary gets cut or if you go beyond this or that. No, no such rules. When we need help, then we just are there too.
I think this is it. This is one of the issues that many women faced all over the world. And the key word, as you say, really is flexibility and to allow
Yes,
them the space
exactly.
to be mothers, but at the same time have
Yeah.
the space to grow. And we were wanting to know as well regarding how do women approach the organization, how they're actually selected, how they can actually get in. What will be the path that they will need to follow if they wanted to join the organization?
Yeah. Usually, all vacancies are announced publicly, and but we also headhunt because finding human resources very difficult here. Qualified human resources, they are usually subsumed within donor structures or within commercial ventures because that pays them more. And so actually we should be facing a lot of turnover, but luckily both the organizations don't face that too much. So when it's shortlisted, we take at least 2 to 3 days of interviewing and also orientating them on the organizations. So, right at the beginning, we give them an orientation. which might take a good half day, and say, if this is really what you think is good for you, then join. But it's not job, it's service. And if you can you look after your family, do you have some backup support, because with the salaries they cannot do everything. Yeah, so it's a very, very intimate, very open, a two-way discussion that goes on before, and then we put them through a big test for teamwork. Are they team players? For basic skills that's needed, writing, thinking, so essays that are thoughtful.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. It really is very well organized and very well thought out. And
Yeah.
as I totally agree with you with regards to the support, that's actually one of the first questions. Even here in Israel, they ask you when you're going to start a business whether you have a support mechanism around you in order to
Yes.
advance. So otherwise, there's no
Yeah.
normally you're going to
They
yeah.
cannot, they cannot hold on to their position. And those of us in the field of development, we say, this is not a job. Yes, it pays us, but it's not a job. It's service, and it's commitment for the larger good. And if you don't have that, this is not the place for you.
Very good. Thank you so much. We've got another question from the audience. This comes from Rodel Rivera and is asking us, what progress have you seen on gender equality in your life and work?
I have seen a lot, I must say. That's because I think the minute the space opens up for women, and here, especially after the democracy movement, so more women than ever got educated, are going to school now, and they are also learning to ask for their rights more. So much has improved now. Politically, women are participating also, because during our last constitution we really fought to make sure that those spaces for women were created. At the local level, we have 40,000 women now who are in these local structures. But in terms of the higher structures, central level structures, they're still very minimum. But there are more women professionals than ever before. And also, women have no choice. They can no longer now be a homemaker or just do their care work at home and support the family. They need to work. So even the economic push is taking them out. Yes.
Thank you so much, Rita. Um, Lastly, we've been asking you so many questions, and as we all know, it's International Women's Day. And I would say that the last question we wanted to pose for you is, what would be your advice to the next generation of women leaders? What would you like to see and what would you like to say to them?
Uh, in leadership, I think we really need to somehow, the leadership that's been demonstrated primarily through men, I mean, has been so much of power and pomp. And I think the kind of leadership that's now needed for men and women is where we can all minimize our egos and practice compassion. This world is in need of love and care, and from the environment to animals to human beings. I mean, I think that's all what we need. Support each other, and just be global citizens and love each other. And I think the work we do now cannot just be limited to ourselves. It needs to be, something needs to be also for the larger good.
So
Nuri at
true.
that. Yeah.
So true, Rita. Namaste. It's been so
Namaste.
wonderful being with you today. I really wish you all the very best. We hope to see you back here in Kaifa soon. And take care. I'll pass the word back to the microphone to my colleague Yehuda. But
Thank
again,
you very
such a
much.
pleasure to see you again. Take care, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nuria. Before we wrap up, I also want to join Nuria by thanking Rita for being with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you have a final word to say, this is the time, Rita.
Oh, no, I just, as I told you earlier, Yehuda, I feel very honored that you invited me today on this really, really special day for me. And in fact, today, this is the only formal initiative I'm doing. I chose to rest because I thought the best thing for the first time this year was to just relax and stay home. So I'm not marching because I'm doing that almost every other day. And so I feel very honored that you asked me. I'm thankful the electricity is holding out and we could have this entire conversation. And I feel very, very honored and appreciative, Yehuda, in knowing you and Nuria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also really are honored to have you in the program today. We really thank you. We also want to thank our audience here in Zoom as well as in Facebook Live from all over the world. We see your comments. We really thank you. Please remember to follow our social media for upcoming events. Next month, we will also come with another guest for Spotlight on Women Leaders of the World program. For now, we'll say a happy International Women's Day and happy Women History Month. We all do this together, and we really want to thank everyone, and we say shalom.
Shalom.
Bye. Thank you.